Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please join us today in the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we'll be studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 8, Manifestation of Brahmā from Garbhodakaśāyī Viṣṇu. And today we'll be hearing the lessons focusing on the characteristics of pure devotional service, शुद्ध भक्ति भगवान के प्रति उनको प्लीज करने के लिए जो एंगेजमेंट होता है, जो सर्विसेज होती हैं, उनका डिस्कशन होगा. हरे कृष्णा. सो हरे कृष्णा, आप सबका स्वागत है, आप सबका अभिनंदन है. अभी हम लोग जय राधा माधव प्रेयर्स करेंगे, उसके बाद में मंगलाचरण प्रेयर्स, फिर हम लोग एक वर्स का रेसिटेशन करेंगे followed by Guru Pranati, and then we'll dive into the lessons for today's class. We will discuss the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. प्रेम भक्ति के साथ हम भगवान को कैसे प्लीज करते हैं, उसकी क्या कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स होती हैं, हमको कैसे बेनेडिक्शंस मिलते हैं. We'll be discussing those. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please join us for Jai Radha Madhav prayers. Jai Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana, Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana, Yamunatira Vanachari, Yamunatira Vanachari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. हरे कृष्णा डियर डिवोटीज, आप सबका स्वागत है, आप सबका अभिनंदन है।
हरे कृष्णा, हरि बोल डियर व्यूअर्स। आज श्रीमद् भागवतम क्लास में जीव तत्व दास प्रभु जी हमारे साथ शेयर करेंगे कैंटो 3 चैप्टर 8 के ब्यूटीफुल लेसन्स। और सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट बात, प्योर डिवोशनल सर्विस का जो नेक्टर है, वी वांट टू हैव दैट नेक्टर, वी वांट टू ड्रिंक दैट नेक्टर बाय श्रवणम एंड कीर्तनम ऑफ कृष्ण कथा। सबसे पहले तो हम अभिनंदन करते हैं, स्वागत करते हैं उन सभी व्यूअर्स का जो रेगुलरली श्रीमद् भागवतम का श्रवण करते हैं, कीर्तन करते हैं, और खासकर उन व्यूअर्स का जो आज यहाँ पर पहली बार श्रीमद् भागवतम अटेंड कर रहे हैं। लेसन्स जीव तत्व प्रभु जी चैप्टर लेवल पे क्लास करते हैं, हर बार एक नया चैप्टर सीक्वेंस में। सो प्लीज जॉइन अस एंड टेक बेनिफिट फ्रॉम दीज टीचिंग्स। अशोक कुमार जी, हरे कृष्णा। हरि बोल नीरू जी, बीरेन जी, हरे कृष्णा। श्यामली चटर्जी जी, हरि बोल। सदीक्षा अधिकारी जी, करुणा सिंधु प्रभु, अनिल कुमार जी, हरे कृष्णा। सनोज कुमार जी, एंजेला मेलो, हरि बोल टू ऑल ऑफ यू। जीवा प्रभु जी, प्लीज गो अहेड विद द लेसन्स ऑफ दिस चैप्टर।
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please join us for Mangalacharan prayers.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriet. Shrotam Swakatha Krishna
Punya Shamana Kirtanaha
Hridayantasto Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhratsatam Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya Bhagavate Rutam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please join us in the recitation of the verse Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, chapter 8. We'll be reciting verse 2. Hare Krishna. So this verse, Hare Krishna.
I can share the verse if you can let
Yes, please. We'll be sharing the link to the verse. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, chapter 8, verse 2. And this verse can be done in two ways. So we'll cover both of them for the convenience of devotees, Westerners, like the first one, the way we'll be reciting. And then in East, people like the second meter. Hare Krishna. So for the convenience of all kind of viewers, we are trying to make it easy. Soham nranam kshulla sukhaya dukkham mahadgatana viramaya tasya pravartaye bhagavatam puranam yad aha sakshad bhagwan rishibhyaha. And then this can also be sung in the second meter. Soham nranam shulasukhaya dukkham mahadgatana viramaya tasya pravartaye bhagavatam puranam yad ah sakshad bhagwan rishabhyah. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Let me now begin speaking on the Bhagavat Purana, which was directly spoken to the great sages by the personality of Godhead for the benefit of those who are entangled in extreme miseries for the sake of very little pleasure. Hare Krishna. Please join us for Guru Pranati. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarine Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangom Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tadaham Vande Shri Gurum Dīnataranam Shri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Kṛṣṇa 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 Hare 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 Rāma Rama Rama Hare 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 Kṛṣṇa, dear devotees. So here again another time we see that Srimad Bhagavatam, when sometimes is misunderstood by people that it was just spoken 5,000 years back, just like Bhagavad Gita, that is not the truth. It was spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in the second canto also, when Uddhav, revealed, and in the 11th canto Uddhav Gita that was spoken. So again, when Uddhav revealed, at that time, Lord had mentioned to Uddhav that you were one of the Vasus in the days of yore. And at that time, I spoke Srimad Bhagavatam to Brahmā. And so, that's how Uddhav received. Because he was in the assembly when Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord, he appeared and he spoke Srimad Bhagavatam to Lord Brahmā. And also, Shukdev Goswami had heard it from Vyasadeva. Srimad Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva had heard it from Devashi Narad, and Devashi Narad had heard it from Brahmā. So that is one way we can understand disciplic succession. It was already established. Now here, just like a tree has many branches, right? And those branches may have many trees, and on the branches, they may have many twigs, and on those twigs there can be many leaves and buds. So similarly, from the main trunk, Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, there are many branches coming out. So there are 4, paramparas that are coming out. Rudra Sampradaya, the Sampradaya, disciplic succession coming from Lord Shiva. Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu is the topmost Vaishnava. Then we have Brahma Sampradaya coming from Lord Brahmā. And then we have Kumar Sampradaya coming from Chatur Kumaras. And then we have Shri Sampradaya coming from Goddess Lakshmi. So again, sampradayas, the importance of sampradayas is again very clear when we hear this, when we study this chapter. And here, so again today we'll be covering 3 lessons. First is, as is described in this verse, that people who are entangled in extreme miseries for the sake of little pleasure. So that's the first lesson, that this material life where people become anxious about their survival, just to have their, basic needs for their livelihood. So they take on extreme endeavors, and that's why they are referred to as mudhas by the acharyas. Sometimes it is very shocking when people hear it, they feel, they get angry at times. But then we have to also look at it. So we will start with a story so that this particular lesson can be properly understood. So once upon a time, again, now that's the first piece. So again, let me just list the 3 lessons so that you understand where we are going. So first one is, people take on extreme endeavor for little pleasure. That's the first one that we'll be focusing on, which is in this material world seeking sense gratification. That is the wrong path to take, which is what causes person to over endeavor and finally, get bewildered and become fearful and anxious. Second is to understand that when you have taken such path, then what is the solution? So we'll quickly cover the gist of this chapter, where it is revealed that not by one's endeavor, but by one's devotion, by starting from one's faith, that one has a hope in this life to be able to experience eternal pleasure. And this eternal pleasure can only be experienced through the nectar of pure devotional service. So that is lesson number 3, where we'll discuss the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. So diving into the first one, where we also want to understand. So again, before we start, one of the important aspects is when we look at different characteristics, when we look at different lessons, these lessons all devotees understand in their heart of heart are for our improvement, not to point to others, right? It is for our introspection. So again, we should be very respectful towards others and not tell them, oh, you are doing this, that is bad, or you are doing that, that is bad. Just pray for them. If we really care for others, give them prasad, pray for them so that they develop faith, they get the mercy of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, and so they can, perfect their life and take to the pure devotional service, as we'll be studying this chapter. That Lord is so merciful that He's just waiting like a patient father who's waiting. Yet at the same time, we have to awaken our consciousness, we have to awaken our dormant devotional service. Bhakti in our heart is like just a fire which has been covered by ashes at times. When a wood is burned, sometimes you see on the surface it is all ash. But when you clear up the ash, that's where the fire manifests and it comes up blazing. So we have to uncover our devotion, our devotional service, that is, our bhakti, our love for Lord Kṛṣṇa. We have to bring it out and engage in serving Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa in pure bhakti, pure devotional service. But what is the initial piece? It is Shraddha. Adho Shraddha tatha sadhu sangha atha bhajana kriya tatha anartha nivriti syat. So it just to clean up is not such a simple process. It starts with Shraddha, then you get into association of devotees, sadhu sangha, and then you take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, and you engage in bhajana kriya under the supervision of a bona fide spiritual master. So again, following the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master, taking the shelter at the lotus feet of a bona fide spiritual master. Bona fide spiritual master we discussed yesterday, one who has appeared in disciplic succession and is constantly engaged in serving Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, right? So again, and the devotees. So again, that is the focus of a bona fide spiritual master. So we as disciples, as aspiring disciples, also have this responsibility to find out who is a bona fide spiritual master, who inspires us, who motivates us, who acts as our father, so that we, as following on their path, can cross over this ocean of nations. So this is an important aspect in spiritual life, a very important aspect. And yes, you can have many instructing spiritual masters, but only one initiating spiritual master. And both spiritual masters are considered on the same level. So that is also very important. Just like Vyasadeva, Devashi Narad was his instructing spiritual master. His initiating spiritual master, Vyasadeva's initiating spiritual master was his own father, Parashar Muni. Right? So again, you can have many instructing spiritual master, but only one initiating spiritual master. That is also very important. And as acharyas reveal, that all are considered on the same level. So we should be respectful, taking, guidance with full faith, with full surrender, with full respect, And this is, I have personally experienced that whenever, even though, at times I was not such a good student, but I was very respectful. My father taught me, doesn't matter, even if your teacher may not be giving good marks, you should always be very respectful, inquire very submissively. And it was so amazing that soon I became very good in studies by following these simple instructions of being respectful to all, and especially to the teachers, to the coaches, to the mentors in my life, and to the various spiritual masters I have received in my life. So again, it is a great benediction. By the mercy of Kṛṣṇa, we get spiritual masters in our life. Just like Vyasadeva, when he was bewildered at that time, Devashi Narad came and enlightened him. When Dhruv Maharaj is going to attain this, he's seeking a kingdom, right, greater than his great-grandfather, then Devashi Narad appears. And when Prahlad Maharaj was still in the womb, Devashi Narad appeared and imparted him the knowledge so that he became an acharya for remembrance. So again, we similarly can take guidance from various spiritual masters in our life, and that is for our own benefit, so that we understand the first important aspect, that in this material world, trying to seek sense gratification, that is not the goal of human life. It is a very rare human birth, and we should be very careful for our own improvement. We should be checking ourselves. So one of the very important lessons that we hear is from this story. Once it so happened that there was this fisherman. He goes out to catch fishes, right? And on that day, means again, he caught a lot of fish. But then he was so much greedy, right? Because he tried to catch and he got really good load. Then he was trying to catch for a long time. He was not catching, and then suddenly he got a really good load. So sometimes, the greed arises. He said, wow, if I catch this much, maybe I'll be done for like a month. So he was so much busy, he didn't realize that it was already, the sun was setting. His boat was full of fishes, and at that time he collected all those fishes, carried on his bandwagon, and he was carrying them. But it had already, the night had already fallen, so it was already dark outside. So at that time he saw at a distance there was a house, there was a lantern outside the house. So he went and knocked on the door of the gentleman, so a gentleman opened the house, and so he said, well, I'm actually delayed, can I sleep here? So the man said, yeah, you can sleep in the veranda outside, no problem, I don't have any issues, you can sleep there. So the fisherman, he parked in the courtyard his wagon, and then he was sleeping in the veranda. And as he was sleeping, it was cold times, right, winter times. So the man saw that this fisherman, he is in a very bad state. So he said, why don't you come inside, it's very cold outside, and I see that you are feeling very cold. So the fisherman was very grateful, and he said, yes, thank you so much. So the man, the householder man, he showed him a room where he can sleep. Now what happened is, after a few hours, the householder, the owner of the house, he was hearing pacing, somebody is pacing in that room. So he knocked the door, he opened the door. So the fisherman said, actually, I am not able to sleep. So the man said, why are you not able to sleep? He said, because I'm missing the smell of the fish net, right? I like my fish net. So the man said, don't worry, I'll go and get the fish net. I think you left it on the veranda. He's like, yes, please, if you could get it, thank you so much. So the man went and he picked up the fish net. It was an abominable smell. He was like, oh, this is bad. But he somehow brought it to the fisherman. And it was so interesting that the fisherman, as soon as he got the net, he actually immediately placed it on his nose. He's like, oh, this is nectar. And then he went inside the room, closed the room. The man was shocked that this fisherman, that stinking net, he's thinking is fragrant. And then the fisherman went to sleep, and he slept had a very sound sleep. So this man was wondering, how could it be such an abominable smell, but the fisherman happens to like it. And next day, the fisherman got up, thanked this man, and he left. So what is the lesson that we get? That sometimes people who are engaged in this material life, they are so engrossed. Acharyas reveal this to us, that they are so engrossed in those material activities, they can never experience the nectar of Kṛṣṇa consciousness, the nectar of engaging with devotees, the nectar of hearing the glories of holy name, his, Lord Krishna's name, form, activities, pastimes. They can never experience the nectar of chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare. Srila Rupa Goswami, he reveals this fact in his Updeshamrit when he says that a person who is inflicted with material disease, he is like a patient of jaundice. Yes, just a पीलिया हो जाता है ना. As a jaundice patient, he is diseased. So if you give him candy, because what is the cure of jaundice? Is to give sweet candy, sugarcane candy, so that the person would, suck on it, and slowly his, the disease would go away. But that sweet candy tastes very bitter to a person who is diseased with jaundice, and he is not able to experience the taste. He wants to keep it away, but that is the prescription by the doctor, that you have to, continue to suck on that sweet candy, so that slowly the taste would appear, and when you can, that bitter taste would go away and sweet taste would appear, and so that you can start experiencing the taste of devotion, the sweet taste of the sugar candy. And when the person is able to taste the sweetness of sugar candy, then they know that they have been cured of the disease. Similarly, when one experiences transcendental bliss, joy, the nectar, the feeling of smiling, dancing, singing, and glorifying Lord Shri Krishna, engaging in his service, now that is when one understands that anartha nivriti, the going away of all kind of anarthas that is going away from our heart, all that, the ashes on top of that fire in our heart of devotional service, all the ashes that are covering it, that is being taken away, and our fire is ready to go ablaze. So this is very important for us to understand. But this is for us to learn from, not to tell others that you are doing this and you are doing that, because that is not the mood of a devotee. Rather, devotee, actually one of the offenses to the chanting of the holy name is trying to preach chanting of the holy name to an unfaithful person, a person who is not faithful. And Srila Haridas Thakur in Harinam Chintamani, he is revealing this fact, that one who tries to tell a faithless person that they should chant would automatically, and this is even for the spiritual master level person, that person would get bewildered from their own path. Not just the person who does not have faith, but a devotee can also lose his faith in Krishna, his devotion to Krishna, his association with other devotees. So there is a great challenge. So again, we should not try to commit such offenses. Rather, we should be very careful in every step of our life that we should chant with faith, with devotion, with full surrender, in the mood of gratitude. Oh my dear Lord, please engage me. Oh Mother Radhe, oh Lord Krishna, oh Lord Ram, please engage me in your devotional service. Devotional service is transcendental. So this is where we understood the important aspect, why one should not try to tell others, because others have their own path. But, should not try to persuade others. Telling is good, but persuasion is something. If someone is not having faith, then one should not persuade others. And that is one of the reasons, one of the thing is that devotees, they distribute prasad, because prasad will automatically purify the person whoever tastes prasad, because that is, prasad means mercy of Lord Shri Krishna. So prasadam causes purification, and with purification one develops love, one develops devotion to Lord Shri Krishna, and the devotional service, it arises automatically, and one engages in devotional service, and slowly one gets purified. So there is a beautiful example acharyas give. Milk is like nectar, and then there is poison, right? So if in a glass, full with poison, you start pouring milk, what would happen? Little, because it's overflowing, the liquid will start coming out. So we can do this experiment even at home, not with poison, but simply have a glass filled with ink, right? Put it in a bucket, and you pour milk in that glass. What would happen? The dark blue ink, the highly concentrated ink, it will start pouring out. What will start happening? That the color of the ink will start becoming lighter and lighter. It will become lighter blue and further lighter blue, and then it will come a time that the glass will appear filled with just milk, and that is where it has to be done regularly. So you have to continue to pour the milk. It's not that, okay, there was one glass of ink, I just poured one glass of milk. No, because this one glass of ink has been collected over many, many births. So all this covering, all the ashes, all the covering to the mirror is being done over many, many lifetimes. It's not just going to go away in a little bit. We have to make continuous endeavor. Another aspect is we should always stay enthusiastic. We should always be determined. We should always be patient in our approach with love, with devotion, following the instructions for bona fide spiritual master, following on the footsteps of the acharyas. Hare Krishna. Avoiding the association of non-devotees. We should continue to engage in Shravanam, Kirtanam, Viṣṇu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atma Nivedanam. The 9 processes of devotional service.
Hare Krishna, there is a comment.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
So Neeruji is saying transformation occurs with prasadam.
Yes, transformation occurs with prasadam. So again, prasadam is very important. And sometimes people ask, what is the proof given? So Srila Rupa Goswami reveals, Atah Shri Kṛṣṇa Namadi na bhave grahyam indriyaha sevon mukhehi jivado swayam eva spuratyadaha. Atah Shri Kṛṣṇa Namadi, Lord Shri Krishna's name, form, activities, pastimes, etc. Na bhave grahyam indriyaha. They are not visible, they are not experienced, they are not perceived by our gross senses. Our senses are too dull for us to perceive the glories of Lord Krishna's name, form, activities, pastimes. Sevon mukhehi jivado. But when we engage our tongue, which is the strongest of our 5 senses, in service. So tongue can perform service 2 ways. One is chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And second way is by eating prasad, the offering, the remnants of the offerings that have been made to the Lordship and His devotees. When we eat those remnants, it purifies our consciousness. Very important. So this is the first lesson. Srila Prabhupada, sometimes he is very harsh. Sometimes we feel like, oh, Srila Prabhupada says so many strong words. And as an acharya, he gives us instructions. And we should be ready to be disciplined as disciples. So one place he says in one of the purport that people in this material world, they are like pigs. If you give pig, ask pig to be, what is happiness for the pig wants to, stay always in this wet mud, and he wants to engage in all kind of sense gratification activities, eating, sleeping, mating, defining, throughout the day. That is what he is constantly engaged in. And he has no worries that he is lying in such an abominable place, eating such an abominable food, and such a bad living. He has no consciousness. So this is where Srila Prabhupada says, similarly, people who are inflicted with the material disease in the world, they do not know that they are performing all kind of sins. They are living in this way and they do not recognize this is happiness to them. Just like a pig or a hog or a dog, that's why he used to say that we should not be living our life like, hogs, cats or dogs. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So Anshuman Singh ji ne comment kiya hai.
Hare Krishna. Anshuman Singh ji ne comment kiya hai.
Why surrender unto Krishna?
Yes.
If your life is a journey, then your mind and body are the vehicle. And it is better to give the driving seat to someone experienced driver, someone who knows about the road.
Yes.
And Lord Krishna is the knower of everything. So that's why surrender unto Lord Krishna. He will check the holes on the road for you so that your journey is comfortable. Everyone's mother gives them birth, but it is He who protects us wherever we go. He is the most gracious, protects us wherever we go. I think it's His love is too much.
Hare Krishna. I don't think everybody heard. Can you repeat the comment?
Sure. Anshuman Singh ji, आपका comment read कर रहे हैं. If your life is a journey, then your mind and body are the vehicle, and it is better to give the driving seat to some experienced driver, someone who knows about the road. And Lord Krishna is the knower of everything. So that's why surrender unto Lord Krishna. He will check the holes on the road for you so that your journey is comfortable. Everyone's mother gives them birth, but it is He who protects us wherever we go. He is the most gracious. I think his love is too much. Shri Krishna Govind Hare Murari. Thank you for your comment. Prabhuji, if you want to say something about his comment, and then readers are requested, the viewers are requested to please write long comments or questions towards the end of the class. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. So again, this is where now Acharyas reveal that materialists, people who are seeking sense gratification, they are engaged in all these kind of activities and for little pleasure. Now why is this little pleasure there? So again, Srila Prabhupada, he identifies, and the Acharyas reveal there is a concept with pavarga. So, swar and vyanjan in Hindi, Vyakhya, we hear about them, right? Pavarga is pa, pa, ba, bha, ma. So, pa, pa, ba, bha, ma. So, Srila Prabhupada says pa is for parishram, hard labor. People take on hard labor, extreme laborious tasks so that they can earn money, they can earn commodities and so forth, and they can enjoy their life thinking that they want to. But however, this pavarga reflects what? A mirage in the desert. So they are engaged in hard parishram. Pa is pena. When you do a hard parishram, we see this in case of bulls and horses and so forth, that the foaming forms when they have been used in hard labor. So similarly, when a man is engaged or a woman is engaged in hard labor, the foaming in the mouth, starts forming up. And pena, then comes bha. So again, bhirtatha. Bhirtatha is bewilderment. One gets disappointed because of this hard labor and getting so tired. One gets very little returns, right? Because we are working for people who are miserly, right? In this material world, the employers are very miserly. And even the government aspects, as we say in Kali Yuga, are very miserly. Instead of helping the citizens, sometimes they are helping the the industrialist or the financial organization. So that is always there. So that is where general populace, they are disappointed. So Bhirtatha reveals this disappointment, and they continue to engage in harder labor, thinking that maybe I do more, and so there is more forming of the foam, and then more disappointment comes in their way. And even though they are wishing that they will get promotions, they will get better salaries and all that, nothing of that sort is happening. Rather, the carrot is just ahead. They are following the carrot or stick philosophy they are following. And so finally they become fearful after a long time, having spent decades of their life in this hard labor, trying to seek enjoyment. And so they become fearful. That is bha. Bha is bhay. Pa is parishram. Pa is pena. Pa is bhirtatha. And then bhay. Pa, pa, ba, bha. Bha is bhay. Fear. They become fearful of their situation, with complete disappointment, in fear, in anxiety. Finally, they attain ma, mrityu. They face death. And this is where Acharyas reveal that such is the case. And one thing, as a child, when I was studying, in my 7th or 8th grade, I read this, and it actually made a very strong impression in my mind that I wanted to share. So again, in one of the lessons that we were reading in Hindi class, the teacher was talking about Put saput to kyo dhan sanchay, put kaput to kyo dhan sanchay. So this is where, if you have a good son, saput means a good son. If you have a good son, to kyo dhan sanchay, then why should you collect wealth, right? Because if you have a good son, then the good son will automatically acquire wealth by his own effort. Put kaput to kyo dhan sanchay. Agar, if your son is a bad son, then why should you collect wealth? Because all your collected wealth will be frivolously spent away, right? So there is no use of collecting wealth if you have a good son or if you have a bad son. So we should not over endeavor to collect wealth and say, oh, this is what I am giving to you, because people, they perform in this process of collecting wealth, they perform many sinful activities. Now when they leave the wealth, the children, they don't really care, because a good son can acquire wealth on its own and a bad son is going to spend it all away. But the activities which were carried out in acquiring the wealth, right? Even the materialistic activities without the focus of devotion, right? Dharma sunishtita pumsam vishvakshena yathas kathasuyaha nautpadyate yatiratim shrama eva hi kevalam dharma stita vishvapumsam. So again, all occupational duty a man performs, if it does not invoke attraction towards the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, then it is a useless labor. So why carry out useless labor and try to collect wealth which is going to be of no use? Rather, this labor that you have carried out, which has not caused any attraction, but you are seeking sense gratification, so now you have to suffer in hellish condition, the reactions of your actions. So this is also a very important lesson. That's why there is so much stress in devotional service. That is why you're pouring this milk in this pot, the nectar is being poured in our heart again and again through the chanting of the holy name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare. So Cheto Darpanamajaram, that is happening. The cleansing of our heart, the mirror of our heart is going on. And so we can see ourselves and who we are. We should understand this. We are the eternal servant of Lord Shri Krishna. Jivera Surubhoya Krishnera Nityadas. Krishnera Tathashta Shakti Bheda Bheda Prakash. So we are qualitatively same as Lord Shri Krishna, but quantitatively very different. He is unlimited, we are limited. He is magnanimous, we are minuscule. So again, there is a big difference from that perspective. So, what do we learn today? First lesson is that we should not be engaging in material activities. There is hard labor involved and no returns. Rather, one may have to suffer for such actions seeking sense gratification. And there is also, we talked about Pavarga, right? Pavarga is where Papa, Baba, Ma, those 5 stages one goes through. So there must be something called Aparvarga, right? Not causing in this material life. So Aparvarga is liberation. That's what it means. It's not the material way of living. And in SRIMADBHAGAVATAM, in the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto, we covered a verse earlier. Dharmasya apavargasya nato arthayopakalpate narthasya dharme kantasya kamo labhaya hi smrataha. What does it mean? Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. So they should be engaged in pleasing Lord Shri Krishna. All our activities should be dovetailed to please Lord Shri Krishna. They should be focused, in serving Lord Shri Krishna and His devotees. They should never be performed for material gain. We should not seek to perform or engage in an activity thinking we want to enjoy, engage in sense enjoyment, materially gain and live happily and merrily, eat, sleep and be merry. That should not be our shloka. Furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. Very important lesson. So this is where we have our prescribed duties because of the various influences of the 3 modes of material nature on the body that we have received, and we have our occupational duty, our Sanatana Dharma. Our Swadharma and Sanatana Dharma, when aligned, all our activities become pure because they are performed in serving Lord Shri Krishna, engaging in pleasing Lord Shri Krishna. So that is also very, very important aspect. Now, what is one of the example that has been given? There is an example given of through a beautiful story. Once there was this fox, he was, returning home at the end of a day, and we all seen the sunset, right? As the sun goes down, what happens? He was traveling east. His home was in the east direction. So what happened? He suddenly saw his shadow increasing in size, because as the sun goes down, his shadow becomes longer and longer. So he saw his shadow really long. He said, oh, maybe I am more powerful than the lion. I had no idea that I have such a big shadow, and I can even defeat the lion, and I can be the king of the jungle. I have such a large shadow. I am so powerful. So in this way, he was walking. He said that if I see a lion, I will kill it and I'll become the king of the jungle. Because his shadow was increasing in size, right? He was thinking, this is a large shadow, it belongs to me, so I must be very big. So it just so happens sometimes, we have to be careful what we wish for, because we might get it. So he was wishing to face a lion, and suddenly there appeared a lion. And so this fox said, oh lion, I am much bigger and much powerful than you are. Now lion had just eaten food. He was full. He had no worries. He did not want to kill this fox. He had enough for the day. So he ignored this fox. But the fox was after him. He was like, oh lion, you know what? I am so powerful. Why don't you fight with me? And the lion ignored him. He continues to walk. So the fox, in his delusion, being bewildered in his ignorance, he attacked the lion, and lion just gave him one jab, and down he fell. The fox fell dead. So this is also something very important we should understand, that a materialist mindset will always drive one to become proud, and with pride comes disgrace, just like the death was faced by this fox. So we should never be proud in our life. Rather, Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he gives us the perfect formula how we can engage in devotional service all the time. Taradapi sunichena tarorapi sahishnuna amanena manadena kirtaniya sadahari. So how can we engage in our occupational duties to please Lord Shri Krishna? Taradapi sunichena, being more humble than the grass on the street. Tarorapi sahishnuna. So can sahishnuna, sahishakti, the tolerance should be more than the tree. And amanina, should not be looking for respect from others. Manadena, but be ready to give all respect to others. Kirtaniya sadari, we can constantly chant the glories of the name, form, activities, pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna. So these, we have to be very humble, and with humility comes wisdom, and we become wise. And a wise person always works in the right direction to make sure that all facilities are engaged in serving Lord Shri Krishna, including the body. So a healthy mind resides in a healthy body. That is a fact. Srila Prabhupada also used to say, early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy and wise. It is a fact. So we rise up early, right? Get ready early. Brahma Muhurat, we do the chanting of the holy names. Try to do our rounds early, minimum 16 rounds daily, and on special days like Ekadashi, Gaur Purnima and Janmashtami, we do minimum 25 rounds. Again, this is the minimum. There is no limit to the maximum that you can do. If you can engage all day, but we have to do it with faith, with love, with devotion, with gratitude, with surrender. That mode is very important. Now in the verse, after we cover this particular aspect, that sometimes materialists are engaged just like a donkey is engaged in serving his master, thinking that his master will give him a little grass and that would be very pleasing. Just like that, we should not work. We should be very careful not to act like a donkey or a hog or a dog or a cat. Rather, we have this rare human form of life. So we should use the time, the facilities very carefully, because these are privileges that we are receiving. Second aspect is, we come back to the earlier part of this verse where it is revealed that the knowledge is received in parampara, in disciplic succession. Just like earlier in Bhagavad Gita, we heard Lord Krishna, he reveals to Arjuna. What does he say to Arjuna? In the 4th chapter, Imam vivasvate yogam proktavan aham avyayam vivasvan mam vepaha manorikshvakave abravit. Lord Krishna reveals to Arjuna that I have imparted this transcendental knowledge to the sun god Vivaswan. And Vivaswan imparted to his son Vaivasvata Manu. And Vaivasvata Manu imparted to his son, who was the emperor of the earth, Ikshvaku. And Ikshvaku, passed it on. But over a course of time, yes, that's in the second verse, that in the course of time, even though this disciplic succession was there, it was broken. So that's why Lord Krishna again spoke that transcendental knowledge to Arjuna. So through the facility of Lord Krishna imparting it to Arjuna, we received the knowledge. So Srila Vyasadeva, he took out Ishopnishad or Gita-upnishad, Bhagavad Gita, from Mahabharata, from the Bhishma Parv. He picked out those 18 chapters where Lord Krishna is imparting this knowledge to Arjuna. And what is the final instruction? Please write in the comments if you know what the final instruction of Lord Krishna is to Arjuna. Hare Krishna. So in Bhagavad Gita, what is the final instruction Lord Krishna imparts to Arjuna? Please write in the comment. Hare Krishna. And we will come back to that. So that is also very important, that the disciplic knowledge is received, once again, the transcendental knowledge is received in disciplic succession. Hare Krishna. And now the third lesson, most important aspect is when we are engaged in devotional service, then how do we, get pure bhakti? So again, this is where we will quickly cover the gist of this chapter, where Viduji in the previous chapter, he had reflected back on the knowledge he had received from Maitreya Muni. So this is a conversation happening in the chapters 6, 7, 8 and so forth. Is a conversation happening between Maitreya Muni and Mahatma Vidur. Hare Krishna. So this is where we see Maitreya Muni is imparting knowledge to Mahatma Vidur. And earlier, he already told to Vidurji, Mahatma Vidur, that Lord, he appeared in the Purusha avatars. We talked about this, right? Karanodakṣāyī Viṣṇu, who is also known as Mahavishnu, Garbhodakaśāyī Viṣṇu, and Kshirodakṣāyī Viṣṇu. So here he is picking up. So again, Vidurji, he reflected that you covered the knowledge of the Mahavishnus. You also covered the Virat Rup, the Vishwarup, the universal form of Lord Shri Krishna, so that even a general person, a common person, can relate to everything that they see in this world with Lord Shri Krishna, with his universal form. And the universal form is actually inferior form because it is related with the gross elements, it manifests and unmanifests. Right? So that is, it is not an eternally existing form of the Lord. So that's why sometimes people, being not so intelligent, they get attracted to Virat Rupa, but that is the beginning, right? They get attracted to the universal form and they think of universal form as all in all because that is the beginning for their life. Then they come to know, oh, there is more to it, right? So, and then they learn other forms like the Purusha avatars, and so in the beginning we talked about in Karan ocean, in the causal ocean, who is residing? Garbhodakaśāyī Viṣṇu. Karanodakṣāyī Viṣṇu, sorry. Karanodakṣāyī Viṣṇu, he is residing in Karan ocean, causal ocean. Then from his breathing and the pores of his body, many universes come out. Every time he exhales, these universes come out, and every time he inhales, all of them, they merge back into him. So again, and then in each universe, he further expands as Garbhodakaśāyī Viṣṇu. And this is where Maitreya Muni, he starts, that this universe, our small universe, was completely filled with water. So this water is the sweat of the Lord. Unlike our sweat, which is smelly, his sweat is fragrant. It is very pleasing. And all the living entities in the subtle bodies were immersed. And he was also submerged in these waters. And so he appears to be resting on Ananta Shesh, submerged. And by his external potency, so he has one more external potency called Kala Shakti. So by incited with Kala Shakti and the fruitive activities of all the living entities, comes up this force and he enters through them as Kala Shakti, and we talked about this earlier in this canto, that Kala and Kali, the external energy of the Lord, they together come in, and so from his navel, from his abdomen, the living entities penetrate, and from his abdomen arises a lotus bud. So again, a lotus, the stem of the lotus, it appears, and there is a bud. So the bud is formed by the living entities, the spiritual sparks, us, that are there, and it glows like sun. So it is only incited, it's only activated when Lord, he further invokes his Kala Shakti. Sometimes people even confuse, they say Kṛṣṇa is Kal, because Kṛṣṇa is saying, time I am the devourer of all things. Right? But time he is also for the creation of all things in the material world. That is also understood in this particular chapter. So it is the Kala Shakti along with Kali, the external potency of the Lord Mahamaya, that he impregnates, and the initial impetus is the Lord impregnating the material energy, and the fruitive activities, the living entities incited by the fruitive activities are driven. They are following, in that particular path. So the stem appears and the bud appears, and when the bud appears, it's glowing like a sun. And this sun dries up all the waters, that is in the upper half of this material universe. And now the bud opens up as lotus flower. And on this lotus flower, Lord Brahma is born. So again, he is born from the navel, the lotus that has come. On this lotus, Lord Brahma is born. So he is also known as Swayambhuva. So again, one who has taken birth, who does not have a material father or mother. He is also known as Aja for the same reason. And when Lord Brahma woke up, he was surprised. Who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? Right? These are important questions he asked himself. And it's so interesting because he was the first living entity in our universe. There was no one else for him to take understanding from at that time, right? No other living entity. And he was trying to understand, he was looking across on all directions of the universe. And so his four heads appeared at that time. Yes, there is a description given that when he saw Saraswati and she went around him, that's another description given, that his four hands appear in this chapter. When he is looking around the universe, the forehead appears, so both can be taken relatively. And as he was trying to understand his cause and why he is there, at that time he started searching. So he engaged, being incited, being an incarnation of the mode of passion, right? Being incited for various activities. He wanted to find his origin. He wanted to find, why am I here? What is the reason? Atato Brahma Jigyasa, right? What is the purpose of my life? So he tried to enter through the stem, trying to find its origin, because he realized that if I am on a flower, the flower must have come on a stem, and the stem must be connected with its roots. So he's going down, but he could not reach the navel of Lord Vishnu. Why? There is a very important lesson. We cover this during Damodar Leela. So first is R and Diva. So again, every time Mother Yashoda, she was trying to bind Lord Kṛṣṇa, the rope was falling short by 2 fingers. The first finger is R and Diva. And what is the second finger? Lord's causeless mercy. Only when Lord becomes merciful can one attain him. So after a lot of labor, when Mother Yashoda got tired and Lord, he understood her sweet love. And even Mother Yashoda was smiling that this is amazing. She's getting such large ropes, but every time it's short by 2 fingers. So Acharyas reveal that R and Diva, yes, is important, but it is the Lord's causeless mercy that actually benefits us in attaining Lord. So this is also very important lesson to learn. So Lord Brahma could not, understand that the stem is coming from the navel of Lord Vishnu. So he came back to the top of the lotus flower. And he was seeing these devastating waters everywhere, big waves. It was fearful. So as he was looking, he heard, so again this is in the previous chapters we covered, he heard the word tapa. So he went into meditation. Meditation, smaranam. So again, meditating on, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he is meditating, and in meditation, Lord revealed him after 1,000 years. So again, here it is said 100 years of Lord Brahma. That is the whole lifespan of Lord Brahma. So again, after a long time, Lord Brahma, he was able to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Super Soul in his heart. So this is the same form, Lord, he had further expanded. Garbhodakaśāyī Viṣṇu expands as Shirodakshayi Viṣṇu. Shirodakshayi Viṣṇu is residing in Shir Sagar. Shir also means milk, right? Milk base. So that is where he is residing. Yet he expands as Super Soul. He is in my heart, he is in your heart. He is one, though he appears to have been divided into many. But he is always one. So he is able to see Shirodakshayi Viṣṇu in his heart, and he is able to see in the form. So now Lord reveals to him as how he is, and it is then Lord Brahma sees the Lord as how he is in the devastating fire. And here he is seeing that Lord is in such a beautiful form, as a beautiful mountain bedecked with like a coral mountain, but he is mocking the beauty of a coral mountain in his beautiful golden yellow garments. The silken garments are looking so beautiful, and he is looking at his lotus eyes. So these are mocking the coral mountains, all the beautiful colors that sometimes we see in nature. Lord's beautiful form appearing like a mountain mocks it. So this is where he's appearing like a mountain, and and the whole place, he's lying on an Ananta Shesh, right? So Ananta Shesh, he is spring cloud colored, right? He's whitish colored with hoods bedecked with jewels, and the effulgence coming from jewel is spreading lights all over the place. So when Lord Brahma is hearing about all this information, again in this chapter, just like we heard in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Kṛṣṇa said that, Bhagavad Gita, he had already imparted it to Vivaswan. So this is the beginning of Bhagavat Puran that Maitreya Muni is covering. And Maitreya Muni, he covers that it was Lord Sankarshan who first imparted this Bhagavat Puran, to the knowledge. This Bhagavat Puran was described and recited by none other than, Lord Sankarshan to Sanat Kumar, who is the chief of the 4 Kumaras, Sanak, Sanatan, Sananda and Sanat Kumar. And Sanat Kumar, later on, being asked by a similar question, just like Vidur asked question of, Maitreya Muni, similarly, Sankhyayana Muni had asked the question of Sanat Kumar, and Sanat Kumar recited SRIMADBHAGAVATAM, the Bhagavat Puran, as it is to Sankhyayana Muni. And Sankhya Muni, when he was asked the same question, a similar question, by the spiritual master of Maitreya Muni. So Maitreya Muni's spiritual master was who? None other than Parashar Muni, the father and spiritual master of Vyasdev. And Parashar Muni and Brihaspati, they both heard him from Sankhya Muni. And it was from Parashar Muni that Maitreya Muni heard. And now Maitreya Muni is imparting this knowledge to Vidurji. Because, why is it imparting this knowledge? Because he says, Vidur, you are my faithful disciple, you are my faithful devotee. So again, you are serving me by asking these questions, right? Pariprashnena sevaya. So a disciple engages in serving the spiritual master as well as in inquiring submissively. So the mood is very important. We should be very humble in our inquiries. So the transcendental knowledge is passed in disciplic succession. Sometimes people think, why do I have to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master? Why can't I just, get online, YouTube and Facebook and WhatsApp, and I can just hear the instructions from different personalities, and that I can make my life perfect? Well, you will definitely get some benefit, but the true benefit you will miss out, because that only comes when you take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. That is the parampara. Tad vidhi paripatena pariprashnena sevya updekshanti tajjnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. So we have to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master who appears in the disciplic succession, passes on the message as it is, with, including their realization of the application of the knowledge. So again, there is knowledge, Gyan, and then there is realization, Vigyan. Vigyan is very important so that we can bring relationship to the knowledge, application of the knowledge. How can we practically use this knowledge in our day-to-day life? How can we live? This is why a pure devotee of the Lord is called person Bhagavata. So we have book Bhagavata, and then there is a person Bhagavata who is constantly showing us how to follow the teachings of book Bhagavad. And so by serving such a person, by taking shelter of such a person, by engaging in pleasing and carrying out the instructions of such a person, Lord becomes merciful. And there is a beautiful reference given in the Shastras. Brahmā bhavite kauna bhagyavan jiva guru Kṛṣṇa prasade paya bhakti lata bija. Brahmā bhavite kauna bhagyavan jiva. We are all living entities wandering in this material universe. Guru Kṛṣṇa prasade paya. But by the mercy of the Guru, and we get Guru by the mercy of Chaitya Guru, the Super Soul in our heart, Lord Kṛṣṇa, by His mercy we get, a bona fide spiritual master. We get to meet, we get to find, we get to seek out a bona fide spiritual master whose shelter we take. And by their prasad, Guru Kṛṣṇa prasade paya bhakti lata bija. By their mercy we get the bhakti lata bij that we sow in our heart and we water it. So what is the watering process? Chanting of the holy name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare. So again, there are three stages we go through in this material world. First is the material life, getting away from material life, coming to the neutral point where we are engaging in devotional service, learning from our spiritual master, finally coming up to the level of asakti, developing attachment to the lotus feet of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. And then comes pure devotional service, bhava and prema. And it is at that prema stage that we engage in devotional service. We experience transcendental bliss. So there is so much nectar that's coming out from the lotus feet of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa that a devotee forgets about all the poison of this material existence, all the anxieties, all the misfortunes, all the miseries, all the pain, all the fear. It just driven away. He becomes Bhola, just like Bholanath. Right? He forgets himself because he is constantly engaging in serving Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. And that becomes the focus. So one develops this bhava, and then finally it concentrates and becomes prema in this loving mood. One is constantly serving Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. And that service is called pure devotional service. And pure devotional service has 6 characteristics that we will be covering, which is where the 3 stages of life. So again, it is when we are engaging in devotional service with love that the bhakti lata that has taken shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa bears fruits, and we relish these fruits. We experience transcendental bliss. Of course, before relishing the fruit, we offer it in devotion as an offering to Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So here we will be covering the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. Pure devotional service when we engage with love, when we seek to please Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa as our only goal, when we want to take care. So Lord appears, He gives us opportunities. He becomes dependent in various ways on His devotees so that we get to serve Him. So first effect is Kleshagni, right? Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. So the forest fire, like this material fire, that is completely eradicated, that is completely, it becomes nil. So similarly, Kleshagni, it destroys the suffering, the material suffering that we are experiencing. And so just like if there is forest fire and then there is torrents of rain falls, all that forest fire will immediately be, it will die out because of the rainfall. Then the second aspect of pure devotional service is subhada, and our life is filled with all auspiciousness because we are in direct contact with the Absolute, with the Eternal, who is the reservoir of all pleasure. So all auspiciousness appears in our life, and we are having spiritual experience at this level. After all the material kleshagni, all the sufferings have been destroyed, we are experiencing in pure devotional service subhada, all auspiciousness. So first one is kleshagni, second characteristic subhada, and third characteristic moshta laghukrita, lagutakrit. Moshta lagutakrit is one even derives liberation. So we talked about the 5 types of liberation. Sayujya mukti is merging into the Brahman, right? Or merging into the form of the Lord. So that's Sayujya, which Brahmanvadi, the Gyan Yogis, they seek it. The devotees derive that. Even Salokya, residing in the same planet as Lord, the devotees derive them. Sarupya, having the same form as Lord Kṛṣṇa, means like Lord Viṣṇu, the 4-arm form, the devotees derive that. Samipya, being a close associate, being a close associate of the Lord, a devotee derives that. He is focusing only, or she is focusing only in serving Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. And Sastri, having the same opulences, the Aishwarya, as Lord Viṣṇu and Vaikuntha planets. A devotee derives even that. So all 5 kinds of liberations a devotee derives because his shelter is only at the lotus feet of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. He seeks only to please Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. He wishes to only engage in devotional service, and he is constantly chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare. And such devotional service is Sudurlabha. Durlabha is difficult to obtain. Sudurlabha means very difficult to obtain. So this bhakti, devotional service, which is even deriving all kind of liberations, a devotee only wants to attain Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, and because it can bring Lord Kṛṣṇa under his control, Lord Kṛṣṇa is overpowered by the service of his devotees. He is bought, in exchange by his devotees. So this is very difficult because Lord Kṛṣṇa doesn't grant it so easily to everyone. It is a great privilege to engage in devotional service. What to talk about pure devotional service? So we should be very careful. And finally, by getting, again, it is really obtained. So that is the fourth characteristics. Then the fifth characteristic of pure devotional service is Sandarananda Visheshatma. So it is a condensed transcendental bliss. It is Navinanam, Navanavinanam. It is constantly, renewing itself. When a devotee serves Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, his love for Lord Kṛṣṇa increases. Lord Kṛṣṇa reciprocates, so his reciprocation increases. And then the devotee, his, feeling the mercy of the Lord again, he is serving even better. So there is a constant competition in this relationship of love. The loving exchanges are increasing like overflowing ocean. So again, we don't have a concept, but imagine if there is an overflowing ocean, how that would be. That is, and it is ever fresh, ever renewing. So such is Sandarananda Visheshatma. This is a characteristic of pure devotional service. And last but not the least is Shri Kṛṣṇa Karshani. Pure devotional service attracts Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. Because pure devotional service is the internal potency of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, just like Radharani. So we understand Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa is also called Madana Mohana. Madana is Cupid. Mohana is one who enchants the Cupid, one who attracts the Cupid. So when, the Cupid, he was asking, who should be his target, and he approached Devashi Narad. Devashi Narad, why are you approaching a sannyasi? You should try to, enchant, you should try to spellbound one of the gopis in Vrindavan who is engaged in Rasa Leela. So now the Cupid Madan, he said, oh yes, I will go to, Rasa Leela arena, and there I will try to target, actually, Lord Kṛṣṇa. So his target was Lord Kṛṣṇa. So what was happening was, he was trying to target Lord Kṛṣṇa, but one of the gopis would come in the way. So as his arrows, which are the, the five senses enhancing, they have arrows of flowers. So when Cupid is trying to shoot his arrows, every time a gopi was come in the way. So he was not able to attack Lord Shri Krishna. So it just so happened that he becomes frustrated and decides to hit his arrow to the gopi, and at that time Lord Kṛṣṇa comes in front of him. So as Lord Kṛṣṇa comes, he looks at Lord Kṛṣṇa's beautiful form and he faints, because he had never seen someone so attractive. That's why Lord Kṛṣṇa is called all attractive, right? Govinda, the one who gives pleasure to the senses and the cows. So again, that's why Lord Kṛṣṇa is also called Madana Mohan, one who attracts the Cupid, because his beauty is like crores of Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Shubham. Lord Kṛṣṇa's beauty defeats the beauties of crores of Cupids, 10 millions of Cupids. So again, we can understand that such is the beauty of Lord Shri Krishna. But Radharani is known as Madana Mohana Mohini, one who attracts Madana Mohan. Mohini is the attractor of Madana Mohan. So she attracts Lord Shri Krishna. Pure devotional service attracts Lord Shri Krishna. So that is the sixth characteristic, that Lord Kṛṣṇa, he gives himself to his devotee, he is attracted by his devotee. So such is the wonderful gift of pure devotional service, the characteristic of pure devotional service, that we can attract Lord Shri Krishna. There is a very common saying, and this is directly in line with this saying. खुदी को कर बुलंद इतना कि तकदीर लिखने से पहले खुदा बंदे से खुद पूछे बता तेरी रजा क्या है. So again, we have to make our devotional service so strong, so pure, so that Lord Kṛṣṇa would ask us, what is it that you want? What can I give you? Right? We want to get to that level. So by engaging in devotional service, by taking to the glorification of the name, form, activities, pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna, to please Lord Shri Krishna with love, with gratitude, with devotion, we can invoke the attraction of Lord Shri Krishna, so that we have eternal happiness, the transcendental bliss, the seeking of happiness, anand bhaya abhyasat. Everyone is seeking happiness, but it is only the spiritual happiness that is eternal. The other kind of material happiness is like spark in the dark, which is full of darkness, and sometimes a spark appears for a fraction of a second. Brahma and effulgence, even that is temporary in nature. So these are the three lessons that we learned today. First is, we should not engage in material sense gratification, because that will lead to only frustration, pravarga. Rather, we should seek the path of liberation, apavarga. And in the path of liberation, the first step is to follow and aspire from a bona fide spiritual master. So that is the second lesson, because all transcendental knowledge is coming in disciplic succession. It's not that you cannot find Bhagavad Gita as it is. Yes, you may find Bhagavad Gita as it is, you can read Bhagavad Gita as it is, but can you live Bhagavad Gita as it is? That is the question. And that is only possible when you take this guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. And then the third step is to engage in pure devotional service to attract Lord Shri Krishna. Hare Krishna, this is where Brahmaji, having seen, Lord Vishnu, Garbhodakaśāyī Viṣṇu, and how he could even see that the stem is going to the navel, the lake at the navel of Garbhodakaśāyī Viṣṇu, and he understood by seeing the Lord in his heart. So, Lord Kṛṣṇa is Garbhodakaśāyī Viṣṇu, is expanding as Kshirodakṣaya Viṣṇu as super soul, and he is visible to Lord Brahma. So at this point, ready to engage in creation of the material universe, the secondary creation, Lord Brahma is ready. But to carry out his duties, he first, starts reciting prayers to the Lord. Understanding that Lord is Hari, He is going to take away all kind of inauspiciousness. So similarly, we should also raise our hands and chant Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So this is where we end this chapter, and we will be covering Lord Brahma's prayers in the next chapter. Gantra SRIMADBHAGAVATAM ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhagavad ki jai, Anant Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nitaya Go Premanande, Hari Hari. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्णा डियर व्यूअर्स, आज जीव तत्व प्रभु जी ने हमें लेसन शेयर किए फ्रॉम श्रीमद् भागवतम कैंटो 3 चैप्टर 8. प्रभु जी रोज सीक्वेंस में श्रीमद् भागवतम के चैप्टर लेवल पे हमें लेसन्स और टीचिंग्स एक्सप्लेन करते हैं, जिससे हमें अंडरस्टैंडिंग डेवलप होती है शास्त्रों के बारे में, हमारे वैष्णव आचार्य की टीचिंग्स. और एट दिस पॉइंट हम आपसे पूछना चाहते हैं, अगर आपके कुछ स्पिरिचुअल इंक्वायरीज हैं तो प्लीज़ पोस्ट देम ऑन द कमेंट्स. प्रभु जी हैज़ फ्यू मिनट्स, ही कैन आंसर योर क्वेश्चंस. एंड अर्लियर ड्यूरिंग द teachings, his class, few devotees answered some questions. प्रभु जी, आपने पूछा था कि फाइनल मैसेज क्या है भगवद गीता में भगवान का, और उसका रेस्पॉन्स दिया था निधि गुप्ता जी ने और बैसाखी पढ़ी जी ने, और दोनों ने लिखा था टू सरेंडर टू कृष्णा, total surrender to the Supreme Lord Kṛṣṇa. Would you like to respond anything on this while I check other questions?
Hare Krishna. Yes. Thank you so much for responding. Sarvadhammam parityajya mamekam sharanam vaja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshashyasmi ma shuchaha. Lord Krishna's final instruction was to give up all varieties of religion and just surrender unto Him, and that He would deliver us from all the sinful reactions. So this is why Bhagavad Gita is a single step process. Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga requires you to first give up something and then take on something. But just by taking to devotional service, automatically other things fall apart. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for this response.
Hare Krishna. So Prabhu ji, we have one question. Baisakhi ji ka question hai. Prabhu ji, as you told, we should be humble to everyone. But is it possible to be humble in every situation in our daily lives? As in this world, there are people who are already ready to crush you at every stage. So Prabhu ji, थोड़ी सी guidance की ज़रूरत है यहाँ पे कि किस तरह से we can be humble, because in humble state of mind we can chant, do pure devotional service, and also how can be respectful at all times, respectful to everyone at all times.
Hare Krishna, very important question. So yes, we should be humble, but that does not mean we become doormat and let ourselves being trampled upon. We should be protecting our bhakti lata, right? Our creeper of our devotion, which requires us to have the boundary, right? And the boundary is devotee association. It is in devotee association that we are able to protect our bhakti lata. So we should be keeping ourselves away from the materialistic association. And if we do have to associate with them, we should only do it for the purpose that we are engaged in. We should not engage with gossip, engage in frivolous talking or in their company. We should give them our association if they are open, but we should not force ourselves, because that will also cause, and by tolerance comes humility. We have to tolerate, but tolerance and humility also has to be used with intelligence. We should be very intelligent to keep ourselves out of those scenarios. And one of the ways is to be very in a prayerful mode. We should be praying to Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa to give us direction. We should seek shelter of senior Vaishnavas, shelter of Guru for various situations that we are facing, so that we can understand what is the purpose, why are we here, and how can we handle various situations in our life. So again, having this conversation enables us to get further enlightenment, how we can live our life filled with tolerance and humility in all circumstances, at all times, in all places. Samay Kal Patra. So these three aspects are very important, and it requires intelligence for one to be able to apply the teachings in these three conditions: time, place and circumstances. Hare Krishna. Hopefully this answers your question.
हरे कृष्णा बैसाखी जी, होपफुली आपको काफ़ी टिप्स मिल गई होंगी प्रभु जी के आंसर से, किस तरह वी शुड बी हम्बल इन एवरी सिचुएशन ऑफ आवर लाइफ, especially in this very materialistic kind of world. And we are challenged, Prabhuji, every day, every moment we have to make choices. And Prabhuji ने बताया किस तरह से taking the shelter of the devotees, taking the shelter of Vaishnava's teachings, we try to cultivate some tolerance. Also prasadam, Prabhuji आपने earlier बताया था. So prasadam is really wonderful for everyone in transforming the heart and consciousness. So अगला क्वेश्चन है अंकुर भार्गव जी का. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please guide how to control Chanchal mana. Ankur Bhargav ji.
Hare Ankur Bhargav ji, very important question, how to control Chanchal mana. So even Arjun posed this question to in front of Lord Shri Krishna. He said, Chanchal hi manah Krishna. So again, the mind is very flickering, it's obstinate, and it is easier to control the wind but not to control the mind. So again, it is like a mad monkey, and so it is very difficult. Yes, that's why Acharyas revealed two processes. First is, in devotional service, we should be praying for devotional service, which is the chanting of the holy name. So when we chant the Maha Mantra, Manah Trayati iti mantra. So one that delivers the mind is called mantra. And Maha Mantra can be chanted in any time, place and circumstances. Even in impure state, you can chant Maha Mantra. All you have to do is, with full faith, with full attention, chant it out and hear attentively. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So please take to the chanting, and also, everything that you eat, you should first offer it to the Lordship, then it becomes prasad, it purifies our consciousness. And, when consciousness is purified, we see who we are. And so then we will be able to also, by Lord's mercy and Guru's mercy, we will be able to control the mind better. Hare Krishna. Hopefully this answers your question.
Hare Krishna, Ankur Prabhuji. So, Jiva Tattva Prabhuji ने आपको अभी टिप्स दी है, और सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट बात है, we should engage our mind in serving Krishna, क्योंकि हमारे आचार्यस ने भी स्क्रिप्चर्स में बताया है, जैसा प्रभु जी ने आज क्लास में हम सबको डिफरेंट लेसन्स में शेयर किया, और प्रभु जी ने बताया कि chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra is a very powerful way to engage the mind, to become stable in serving the Lord, to become favorable to our devotional service. आगे लिखा है कमेंट निधि गुप्ता जी ने. हरे कृष्णा माता जी एंड प्रभु जी, प्लीज टेल मी हाउ कैन आई डू डेली पूजा ऑफ राधा कृष्णा विदाउट डिस्ट्रैक्शन. निधि गुप्ता जी.
हरे कृष्णा. निधि गुप्ता जी का क्वेश्चन है, हाउ कैन आई डू डेली वर्शिप, द डीटी वर्शिप ऑफ राधा कृष्णा without distraction. So again, you should chant and you should definitely try to follow. So again, this requires more instructions. It cannot be covered in this quick class because there is a whole Panchratrika Vidhi, right? Now, Narad Panchratrika Vidhi is called with Devashi Narad's name, just like Uddhav Gita started with Uddhav's name. But actually the whole Vidhi was described to Devashi Narad by Lord Shiva over 5 nights. So again, when he had to hear across 5 nights what is this Vidhi, the process of deity worship, is very difficult to cover in this time. Hare Krishna.
Her question has 2 parts. How can she do puja? Second, without distraction.
Without distraction means you should find out a specific time when you can be away from distraction. Early morning is the best time. So that's why Mangal Aarti. And you should start by first making an offering of sweets, because Lordship, he just wakes up, right, early morning. So at that time, if you give him sweets and you should take care of him very nicely, offering him flower petals and so forth, he is in a very happy mood. And he makes it possible for you to become fully focused, because when he is happy, you become happy. He is shining from within your heart. That enables you to do deity worship early morning in a very auspicious and attentive mode, with full absorption in the deity worship. Hopefully this answers your question. Hare Krishna. And yes, we will cover the deity worship in one of the seminars later on. We do cover that. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्णा निधि जी, आई होप यू गॉट सम टिप्स. आपके क्वेश्चन के दो पार्ट्स हैं. यू वांट टू डू द डेली पूजा ऑफ राधा कृष्णा and you want to do it to the best of your ability without distractions. So distractions का part तो आज इस पे काफ़ी डिस्कशन हुआ है कि माइंड को कोऑपरेटिव कैसे बनाते हैं, और जो डीटी वर्शिप का सब्जेक्ट है उस पे हम एक सेमिनार कर सकते हैं, सेपरेट क्लास कर सकते हैं, जिससे आपको इंसाइट मिलेगा. Meanwhile, stay connected with us on the WhatsApp group. You will get lot of information. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, at this point we don't have any more questions, so I think we can end the class now. Thank you, dear viewers, for attending the class today, and खासकर न्यू व्यूवर्स जो पहली बार आए हैं, आप सभी का बहुत बहुत अभिनंदन है. प्लीज वॉच अवर पास्ट वीडियोस ऑन श्रीमद् भागवतम क्लास, ऑन चैंटिंग द हरे कृष्णा महामंत्रा. सारी रिकॉर्डिंग्स अवेलेबल हैं. Please like and share them with the friends and family so that everyone can come closer to Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Tantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhagavad ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki jai. Nitai Go Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.